G'day, hi, and welcome. Okay, Illuminati Card Game. Well, it looks like this is a game that came out in probably around late 90s, that type of thing, and there's about 700 playing cards. I don't know how many decks there would have been, but basically it was kind of a limited edition type stuff. Now, a lot of controversy behind it because of the, art imitating reality or reality imitating art. I don't know which it is. So there's also a lot of cards here that will show events that kind of come to pass. Is it coincidence or was it actual, sinister planning? The debate will go on forever. But these cards do exist. I don't have any. I've never seen them personally, but I found out about them, through the internet. And like most things, you would never know about them without modern social media. So if these are sort of a blueprint to what the Illuminati's up to, well, maybe you can get these cards and say, hey, this might be the next thing to watch out for. But, like anything, who knows? So, first off, I guess we've got to go back to what is the Illuminati. Well, here's where all the great conspiracies kind of come out. To me, do the Illuminati exist? The answer is yes. Do they refer to themselves as the Illuminati? Maybe yes, maybe no. Who knows? What I think it is like anything. I think they're just people like you and I. I don't think they're lizard people or anything like that, like David Icke thinks. I like David Icke. I do think a lot of his theories are correct, but the lizard people thing, I think that might be taking it a bit much for myself. You believe whatever you want to believe. Is anything possible? Anything is possible, sure. But at the end of the day, what I think it is just the people are just basically corrupt. They're basically mobs. Now the Illuminati itself predates ancient Egypt. These are ancient secret societies. It goes back to the Crusades with the Knights Templar. It also links to the stonemasons. It links to the Skull of Bones, and all these secret organizations kind of link together. Even some people think they're Satanists, which that's a possibility, because if you look at the Rothschilds, which are considered an Illuminati family, and you got to understand too, some of these Illuminati types might be doing it just for the fame and the glory, that they're not actually Illuminati. It's just, but if they can get controversy going, they're in a position to do that. So that said, the Illuminati influence in pop culture, for example, pick a I think that's a Keisha video, the Die Young one, is full of Illuminati signs and pentagrams and stuff like that. But again, is it Satanism? Is it not? Well, first off, if it is a secret society that worships Satanism, well, then you're looking at something totally different. But for example, at Bohemian Grove, they worship a giant owl called Moloch. Now, there's also the big pagan goat that they worship and stuff like that. So the Illuminati, are they Satanists? Are they not? What do they really stand for? That's where the debate keeps, you'd be chasing your tail on that one forever and a day. But at the end of the day, I think they're just corrupt people that do corrupt things, and, global dominance and stuff like that. Now, what is their actual influence if they've been around so long? Why has nobody heard of them up until now? Well, I don't think any generation is different than the next, no matter how far back you go. I think there's always a group of people in every society that pick up on things like this, such as, the ruling class. They kind of pick up, okay, well, hey, something's not right here. And, we basically get one, not generation, but maybe one, kind of generation of human beings. By the time they figure things out, they get to the age where nobody's listening to them, and they're too old to do anything about it. So I think that's what happens to a lot of people, and then it starts all over again, and then you have the next generation that comes along and plays the same game, and then they get too old and stuff like that. But I don't think there's anything new in history about what these people do and stuff like that. Now, how successful are they? Well, if you're manipulating everything, the currencies, you're doing social engineering, you're going to be very, very powerful. You're going to be very, very influential. And I think a lot of people have picked up on some of the things that they're common things that they're really going after. To me, the main thing they seem to be going after to be able to achieve one world government and stuff like that is basically communism. And the best way they can do it is they obviously can't tell people, like most communists, they cannot come out and tell you they're a communist. Because if they are, I mean, there are people that are hardcore communists that will say, yes, I'm a communist, take it or leave it, whatever. But most people will, they're closet communists. The reason why they won't tell you is because most people just would not go along with that, right? I don't want to be ruled by communism is basically a ruling class. Now, they when you're younger, they tend to snow you with the idea that communism is about equality and stuff like that, but it has nothing to do with that at all. If it did, it would have worked already, but communism always seems to fail. So they have to come up with other ways to manipulate people. Now, for thousands of years, they were able to do it because people didn't have rights, people weren't able to fight back, that type of thing. So they could rule people, quite easily, up until kind of the invention of the firearm, and then revolts started happening, and when people do catch on to the ruling class and stuff like that, they tend to revolt quite violently. So with that said, they had to be more crafty about it. Now, other ways they could do it is through religion, and if you look, and again, I'm not a religious scholar, nor do I claim to be, but I do kind of dabble in all religions just to see who's up to what, and what the core principles are about. And if you look at Christianity, for example, how many times it's changed, particularly after it got, through the Vatican, how much it's become political. And of course, the whole Vatican thing, is full of Illuminati conspiracies, right? So with that said, it's like, okay, how many times have things changed? How many times has history been rewritten? That type of deal. Again, the Knights Templar, for example, they found something in Jerusalem. Nobody knows what it is, but after they came out of I forget where exactly they found it, one of the temples anyway, they started behaving differently. They started behaving more like drunken sailors than they did warrior monks, right? And that's what the Knights Templar were. They were warrior monks, and they were, fighters, trying to find the Holy Grail and protect Christianity. Yeah, I know that's debatable, but that's not the main issue here. But the main issue is that they would train to fight. For example, a Knights Templar would not retreat unless they were outnumbered more than 3-1. So these guys were like really good at their craft. They were, basically, they would protect treasures. They would protect, although they didn't do quite such a good job on the cross, the sacred cross, but stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they were very, very, very noble order to be a Knights Templar. And then all of a sudden they discover something. Nobody knows exactly what they discover. Some people speculate that they discovered that Jesus had relatives and had siblings. And if that was the case, then it means there was no Immaculate Conception, meaning the religion was a sham. And bottom line, if Jesus had brothers and sisters, then that would mean and a family, then that would mean, these guys wasted their whole life crusading for a lie. Therefore, they would go get drunk and do all kinds of things. Eventually, most of these guys were put to death. So, if that's one theory. Now, am I saying Christianity doesn't exist? No, I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that it did get manipulated. There's, every religion has been manipulated. For example, in Islam, they say, well, it's the only one true religion that has never been modified. But yet you have Sunnis, you have Shiites, you have Wahhabis, you have Alawites, you have, and they all agree on the same thing up until near the end. And it's very similar to a lot of Christianity, where some believe, for example, the Jews, they believe in God, but they don't believe in Jesus. That type of thing. So all these books have some sort of a bit of a spin, and then you got the Old Testament, which kind of goes back to like the Book of Abraham and stuff like that a little bit more, and then it's a little different. They don't believe the New Testament versus the Old Testament, and so you got 27 books to choose from, right? So out of that, somebody had to lie. Not everybody can have the right story. Now, getting back to the Illuminati, how they're playing it or spinning religions, well, it's hard to say, exactly how if they're using religion to control certain groups or whatever. They could be doing that. Now, if you go to Albert Pike, who I don't know if Albert Pike was necessarily Illuminati, he kind of was, kind of wasn't. But he did say there would be 3 world wars. He also did say that religions would basically wipe each other out, right? That was the goal. So if you look at what's happening in the Middle East, this would fit that plan perfectly, because they can't kill each other fast enough, right? And Christians, even by United Nations standards, Christians are the most persecuted group on the earth right now. You don't want to be living in a Muslim country if you're a Christian, for the most part, because you're pretty much going to get killed, but yet, in the West, they play it the other way around, Point is they're all being slaughtered over there, and somebody has an agenda, So the Illuminati on the religious front, it's something that you have to cover, and you have to look at. You have to kind of see what is it they're exactly trying to accomplish, and how much have they accomplished. And the other thing too is when you start looking at the economics and the one world government and stuff like that. Well, the United Nations is clearly a communist organization. Just look at who's in charge and who's, you have some of the worst dictators in the world that are part of the United Nations. And, they're making policy that gets adopted by, every country. The Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, all done in secret. And the reason why it's done in secret is because most people would not go along with it. So that tells you right away that government is no longer representing its people. Now, somebody has to have a plan to be able to make that happen, right? It doesn't just happen easily. You have to coordinate an awful lot of things. Now, yes, all corporations are going to go for their, self-best interest, of the corporation rather than the people, and that's nothing new. But again, what are all these corporations after? Well, they're all after resources, and who owns the resources? Well, the people own the resources. The people are the problem. So if you have too many people and they're in the way of your resources, what's your next step? Well, depopulation is your next step. That's the next thing you're going to be wanting to work on. Now, the Georgia Guidestone says get the people down to under 500 million or something like that globally. Which, how achievable is that? Well, considering the starvation, a lot of people don't realize that in most of the third world countries, people are starving to death. War is like the secondary problem. Starvation is the number one. And a lot of it is due not so much to bad weather. A lot of it is due to changing the seeds in the crops. For example, in India, Monsanto went in there, gave all these Indian farmers, drought-free, drought-resistant crop seeds for their poppies, or not poppies, but the cotton and I forget what the other resource, I guess wheat or something like that. They did that, and then all of a sudden, all the crops failed. So the Indian farmers, basically, most of them committing suicide. One of the highest rates of suicide amongst the Indian population is these farmers, because they lose everything. They had these families handed down, farms handed down generation after generation after generation. All of a sudden, you see massive crop failure. Um, Other things, for example, regulating. The biggest weapon on the planet is food. So if you want to control the world, you don't necessarily need to control the money. You need to control the food. And then you have to have a big army to, kill the masses of hordes of people that will revolt for starvation, right? So, bottom line, you've got a beef shortage in the states due to people being regulated off their land. You've got lower quality of products coming into the country, such as chicken, and now you could be buying all this chicken from China and Mexico, places like that. So that all these third world countries will be the agriculture or whatever. And the Agenda 21 is basically the blueprint to accomplish all this. And Agenda 21, again, using it's green communism, basically. Green on the outside for environmentally friendly, and red on the inside for communism and complete control. So one of the big things that they have to do, okay, in order to get global governance, well, number one, you need to starve out the population, but you can't let them see it coming, because, again, out of the many comes one, and it only takes one person to know who's doing what. But in this day and age, it's a little more sinister than that, because as soon as things go right, there's going to be tens of thousands of millions of people saying, "You did this to us." So unlike any other time in history, because of the internet, people are much more awake than they've ever been in history. And like you take the Greatest Generation, for example, the World War II crowd. These people were very patriotic. Most of them didn't have to be drafted to go into World War II. Most of them signed up. Yeah, there was a few draft dodgers and stuff like that. There was a draft, but most of them signed up because they believed they were doing the right thing. Now, all wars are bankers' wars, and everybody knows that. And controlling the financial system, again, they have a plan, And again, to me, they're just really corrupt people. So when you look at these cards and you can see some of the stuff that they might be planning, some of it has already come into play. Other stuff hasn't. So when you're looking at other things such as how can they make this happen, well, the TTP is pretty much, from the little bits that I've heard about it, because nobody knows what it's going to be until it gets passed, right? And there's no way to object to it once it's signed. So it basically is bringing in, it's basically NAFTA on steroids, which NAFTA has pretty much destroyed Canada and the United States economy compared to what it could be, and it built up China. Okay, so with that said, if the TTP, it's a total power grab in every aspect of human life. And Agenda 21, for example, they don't call it that anymore. They call it, for example, sustainable wetlands projects and stuff like that. Sustainable development, they use a lot of buzzwords that sound really good, but at the end of the day, when you have human-free areas where people are not allowed to go, and they're starting to pop up here and there, Canada and the United States, like there's certain wind areas, where windmills are put that people are not allowed to go here in Canada, and stuff like that. Parks, you're not allowed to go, so everything becomes a national park, and rare and endangered beetle, you can't go in there. The Clive Bundy Ranch is a perfect example of how they carry this out. And look at the strong arm tactic they tried down there. I think that was more of a probing to see how people would react to it. And a lot of people, they think it's about a welfare rich farmer. Well, here's the problem with that. Number one, this guy is a farmer who's worked all his life. He's never had the handout, so to speak. So he's worked for everything. He's improved the land. He's done everything that the BLM was supposed to do, but they didn't do. But yet BLM took much tax dollars and regulated 50 other farmers off that land. And it's kind of what we've seen in the Greenbelt here in Ontario, where they regulated the most lush land in Ontario for growing food. They're building condos on. You know what I mean? Next thing you know, we have a food shortage. How did that happen? You know what I mean? Like, that's the problem when you let government take care of things. And the governments are controlled by these very, very handful of select people. They say the world is controlled by about 6,000 people. And, NGOs and CEOs of companies and politicians and stuff. If you think about it, the average, there's 500 puppets in Washington and about 300 and some odd puppets in Ottawa here. And that's probably about the same number of every politician's parliaments or cabinets in, around the world per country. That's probably about an accurate, except for, places like Saudi Arabia where you have a family of 5,000 royalty, so that's even worse, but the end of the game, they all answer to somebody. And again, for people to go along with the communism, and well, it's more Marxism than communism. There's a couple of things they need to do. The number one priority is gun control. Why? Because lots of genocides could not have happened successfully with an armed population. Why? Because they tend to shoot back. Now, what's the other problem is that when your military does decide to overthrow its government, and it will happen anywhere this tyranny comes. You're even seeing it in Ukraine, where there's certain Ukrainian soldiers that will not fire on the people of Donetsk and Sloviansk, and they're getting executed for not following orders. Because, well, you're supposed to kill the terrorists. Women and children are not terrorists. I'm sorry, they're just not. And you can really see the polarizing of how they're like. The Ukraine is like a steroided version blueprint of how they want to do that to the rest of the world. Divide and conquer. Problem is this is where I kind of fall off the Illuminati bus as a one world government organization where they're all in on it. Problem is something I've been saying for a long time, is it's one bloody chair up at the top, and there's a lot of people that want to sit in that bloody chair, right? And what I'm saying is it's mob versus mob. So you have your Rothschilds, for example, which are notable, your George Soros, your Harry Kissinger, all those guys, they're kind of one team, right? And they all kind of basically, and David Rockefeller, they're all one team. They kind of work together, and then you have the Russian team, then you have the Chinese team and the Japanese team, like the Yakuza and stuff like that. So you have all these organizations. So they're not really all Illuminati. They're all basically mob. And that's my take on it. Now, when it comes to this card game, I know I'm kind of diverting from the card game, but some of those, because these people are up at a level that they can, they don't ask for things to be done. They said, this is the end game, make it happen. They leave the creativity up to, the doers, right? These people actually really don't have as much power as people think they do. It's perception based. For example, the most powerful army in the world is only powerful unless it stands down, right? So if Genghis Khan couldn't get people to follow him in the pillaging and villaging, then there would have been no pillaging and villaging, or it would have just been him and people would have clubbed him over the head, and that would have been the end of it. But because people believed in his cause and they followed him, then, he kind of got his way. Same with Hitler, same with any of these people in Mao Zedong, any of those. The Bolsheviks, yes, I know about the Bolsheviks. All these things would not have happened unless people were willing to follow orders. Now, people will blindly follow orders. They did test experiments to see. This was back in the 50s or the 60s, where they basically had a guy sit in a room and a guy with a lab coat telling him to read questions to a guy in another room who he could not see, and if the guy got the question wrong, he would have to give the guy a shock, and there was a couple of different levels of shock, and if he kept getting, each time he got the question wrong, they'd have to up the level of shock. And the guy on the other end was basically not, he was in on the experiment. He was not being shocked, but he'd let out a yelp every time the guy would shock him, right? So anyway, he'd ask a question, and the other guy would purposely get the question wrong, and the guy in the lab coat would keep telling this guy, don't keep shocking him until he gets it right. And basically the person would shock him until the guy would, basically die, until there was no response, and the guy would be sitting there, well, should I stop? And the guy in the lab coat, no, keep going. But what it proved was that people are willing to follow orders if it comes from government. This is dangerous, because this means people will void thinking. Hence why the easiest way to when you put it to somebody like that, well then you obviously you're sitting there saying, well, I wouldn't follow that order. I wouldn't do that. Are you crazy? That's nuts. Meanwhile, don't worry, the guy was okay, but you get the idea. But here's the trick. There's another thing. The biggest thing you need to control people, next to the food, next to the economy, next to whatever, is you need to dumb them down. Have you ever noticed recently, particularly in the past, say, I don't know, decade or so, how stupid everybody has gotten? They're stupider. They're stupider than when I was a kid. And, some of the people when I was a kid weren't too bright. Some days I'm not the brightest. I'm like a shiny doorknob. Maybe not the dull one, but the shiny one. But still doorknob some days, right? But the bottom line is that people learn 2 plus 2 can equal 5, or whatever you emotionally feel it should be. Next thing you know, you'll have all these people that are walking around that are really, really, really stupid. Like they'll believe anything, and they're dumbed down. But most importantly, they get entertained by the most simple of things. I still say Facebook and YouTube. Okay, they were private enterprises that the NSA and all that, they spy on it and stuff like that. But I think the idea was, okay, I let that go. That's perfect, because it's the ultimate dumbing down of society is get people absorbed in the selfie, get them hooked on Facebook and stuff like that. And don't get me wrong, I use Facebook and YouTube. Obviously, if you look at my YouTube channel, you could tell I use it once or twice, but most people would look at it and say it's social YouTube and Facebook, things like that, or whatever. Twitter is just a social media. And I'm like, I'm way above that. I'm looking at it the way these so-called Illuminati guys and mobster guys and corrupt government is looking at it. It's a weapon. You think the ability, to reach the masses with a single post or a hashtag or whatever, in under a few seconds, you could reach millions of people if you have followers, That ability is a weapon. That ability can cause, upheaval and revolution, which Facebook has done that. Why? The Free Syrian Army, that's how they got their start. It was a Facebook post. Let's go protest, bad living conditions. The Egyptian when they overthrew Morsi, which was a coup. That started with a Facebook post. You see why China and Russia and places like that, they definitely censor the internet. Even the Ukraine. I had a Ukrainian, one of my videos I posted, I said, I don't hear a lot from, Ukrainian people. I hear from the Russian people on some of my videos, but I don't hear a lot from the Ukrainians, which is kind of odd, And one guy says, yes, I am Ukrainian, and the internet's very censored here. Next thing I know, I see the comment has been taken down and then kind of revised as, yes, I am Ukrainian. Now, maybe he went and did that himself. I don't know. But you get the idea. Like, to me, and I'm not making that up. I mean, I'm like, it is that censored, It is that censored. China can, I could never make a video like this in China, unless it was bad-mouthing the United States or something. Thing is all the elites at the top, it's the same thing when we're in the days of the kings and queens or whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a secret organization or not. And, social media is what pretty much really put a face on the Illuminati, the Bilderbergers, those type of things, and really, kind of expose things for what they were. How all wars are bank wars. Now, like I said, out of the many comes one. And for, every generation, there's always a handful of people that know what's going on. They can put two and two together. They're kind of basically subversion resistant. And when you realize that almost every social program is a subversion program in the United States, Canada, Europe, it doesn't matter where you go in the world, it's all subversion. And Hegelian dialect, problem, reaction, solution. Why? Because it just works so well. The government just, it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Problem is it's not working as well as it used to. And again, I mean, when I was a kid, I remember talking to one guy, and he's like, "Well, when UN tanks start rolling up my driveway, I'll be shooting at them." Type thing. I was like, "Okay, this guy's kind of lost it." But now that's not so far-fetched because you have Obama out there talking about how wonderful we're a part of the international community. International community. I'm commander-in-chief of and working with the international community. Really, kind of, what does that? Let's read between the lines, because when politicians talk, they speak in riddles. They don't speak plain language. What they're saying is, who's the international community? That's what you need to ask. Well, the international community is the United Nations. That's the international community. It's not every other nation. It's the United Nations. That's the international community, because that's where they all converge. And what is the United Nations? It's a communist regime. Just one world government, one world currency, one world everything. Now, again, the only way they could get that is really Agenda 21. And Agenda 21, like I say, they've had to kind of call it other things just so people could kind of, not be so angry. So they had to find a cause, right? They had to find a really good cause that people would get behind, and not really knowing what it is. Well, it came. And it came in the form of a hockey stick. No, it didn't start in Canada, though. It came in the global warming scare, which I don't care how you feel about climate change, global warming, global cooling, whichever you want to go with. My take is this. When the planet started, it was a ball of molten lava. You couldn't live here. Then it turned into through all the meteor strikes, they figured water came in and it was a big ocean ball. And then, a few volcanoes peeking up through. Then it got cold, and there was like 10 miles of ice thick, okay, around the entire planet. It was a big ice ball, big snowball. That's what it was. Then it melted. Things became green and lush. And then a couple of big continents came. They went. They came. They went. And now we got 7 continents. And we had big lizards. We had big birds. Then we had small stuff. Then things got hit by a big space rock, and then everything died. And then it all started over again. And for billions of years, we didn't have any polar caps. Then we had tons of polar caps, almost right down to the equator. And I guess the point is this: for the past 400 billion years, the planet has been changing. So the idea that global warming is a scam. I'm convinced it's a scam. I've seen the arguments of the science on both sides, and every time I see a valid argument, particularly that looks valid for the global warming, I see somebody come along and say, yeah, but you didn't factor in this, and the CO2 is nowhere near the dangerous levels that it needs to be, and it's nowhere near in the atmosphere where they said it's supposed to be, and the Arctic has more ice, even though not as thick, that it has more ice than it ever had. And then, of course, we've had this, crazy winter. Now, to me, that suggests climate change is just something that's ongoing. Yeah, but there's a drought in California right now. And yeah, it's still kind of cool. Here, yeah, it's a nice day today, but it's been cooler than average here. It's cold over here. It's warm over there. Bottom line is, Mother Nature's going to do what she's going to do. Now, let's say you are on the climate change, man-made global warming. I just can't, I just can't get behind that one. But we'll say for argument's sake that it's 100% true. So what do we do about it? Well, I'll tell you what the Illuminati and the corrupt elites want to do about it. Well, they want to get rid of farting cows. That's number one. Poor cows. Everybody always picks on cows. Yeah, cow, move. Get in the meat grinder. Yeah, whatever. You fart too much anyway. So they want to get rid of cows. They want to get rid of this. They want to get rid of that. They want to get rid of all kinds of stuff. So what they have to do is basically get rid of people. Again, why? Because they're on the land, they're on the resources. So how do you do that? Well, number one, you get rid of property rights, and you corral everybody through taxation, because even Karl Marx admitted this. Progressive tax is designed to make everybody poor so that they can't afford nothing, and when they can't afford nothing, you can control them easier. And one of the things the elites never like people having is land. Why? Because it stands in the way of progress. Hence why I'm not for land expropriation. The other thing is that it also does something else. okay, is that whenever you have all these people that are basically spread out on the land, you don't know what they're up to, you don't know what they're doing, and more importantly, they can be self-reliant, which you cannot have that. You need a welfare state. You need government has to control every aspect of your life. You cannot think if you think you are a dangerous person. Therefore, once they have all the people basically regulated off their land, the next thing is to do something else. And that last thing, which is coming down the pipe quite quickly, is a carbon tax. Okay? Now, the carbon tax is going to kill people. And a lot of people, it's because it's soft kill programs. They don't realize, like a lot of people don't get it. For example, socialized medicine is a genocidal program. It works for some, yes, it does, but it cannot work for all. Why? Because it limits options. So people who can afford really good healthcare are not allowed to get it. Why? Because they don't want to cure you. They want you dead. And the reason why they want you dead is because you're tying up resources. You're useless eaters. That's why you'll notice, like, for example, his Obamacare plan. Well, he's not using that plan. None of them are. Congress is completely exempt from socialized medicine. Okay, they don't have to do it. If it was such a great thing, they'd be leading by example, and they'd be doing it themselves. So that's one thing. So you make sure that people die a little quicker, and then of course there's all the other things, the fluoride and water and all that stuff. But then you need, with the carbon tax, is it just makes everything unaffordable, completely unaffordable. Now the problem with the Illuminati and stuff like that is they're not as smart as people think they are. They're not. Why? Because again, these are people that don't know how to do things for themselves. They have everybody do it for them. And like the old saying goes, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Okay. Alexander the Great. Okay. He went out on the battlefield with his soldiers and generals and stuff like that. He fought alongside them. He wanted it done right. That's why. And people would follow him into hell because of that. Now, the thing about that is, the modern day politicians, they don't go to war. Their children don't go to war. I mean, yeah, okay, you got Prince Harry and Prince Philip or whatever. They put on a good show. They could fly helicopters, and they could drive tanks, but they don't really see any combat. You know what I mean? George Bush, yes, he was good at flying onto aircraft carriers, so was his son, but again, they don't ever really see any combat. Now, George Sr. might have, but, and the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that almost all the presidents are related to each other. Yes. A 12-year-old girl figured this out. They all go back to George Washington, or it was either George Washington or Lincoln. I can't remember which one she did, but she said all of them are related, including the Clintons. They're all related. So that's where the secret order kind of comes in. But that's just one order. And when I say order, I mean New World Order, mafioso, yakuza, dynasties, the Saudi family. You got all these factions in there. So just to finish up, though, one last thing again. With the taxation is that you have to get people to go along with. That's why they dump people down, so that they get emotional about climate change, and they cannot critically question. Like the simplest question you have to ask is, how does raising taxes, carbon taxes, fix the climate? Doesn't stiffer regulations of saying, okay, how about we don't buy, like China builds 2 coal plants a week. That's amazing. They build 2 coal plants a week. How about we just don't buy stuff from China because, if it's really about climate change? Well, it's not. It never was. It's about control. So I know people will get emotional about climate change, but that's not the point. The point is, whether you believe in it or not is not really the question. The question is, what solution are they trying to get people to demand through problem, reaction, solution? Well, they're trying to get people to demand a carbon tax. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, again, we'll look at these cards, and I guess there's about 700 of them or so. I didn't count them out or whatever. Some of them look pretty harmless, and some of them, obviously look like something that they might be up to. And were these cards put out as a, kind of a warning, or a kind of, wow, people are too stupid to kind of pick up on it, that they'll never catch it? Or is it, just kind of a coincidence and it's just a game? Well, you think about it. But you just put it this way. Operation Iraqi Liberation. which was done by George Bush when they went, it sounds pretty nifty, right? Operation Iraqi Liberation. We're going to go in there, we're going to save the Iraqis. What's the anagram for that? Oil. So, and I guess I figured nobody would pick up on that. You know what I mean? So now either they're really stupid, they think we're really stupid, or they're just like bumbling idiots and they didn't realize their blunder. But again, I don't believe in coincidences on a lot of things. It just, some things just do not make sense. And I don't think these people are as well organized as a lot of people think. Now, the thing is, yes, they have control of militaries and police and stuff like that for now. But I can tell you, like in any other place and the reason why communism fails pretty much, all the time, and it starts up again somewhere else, only a new brand of communism. It always fails because, it's good for everybody else but me. And, do as I say, not as I do, that type of thing. And what really ends up happening is people just get fed up of being fed up. And again, the masses, they go to the streets, they riot, they do this, they do that. The smart people, well, they take down the big guys. And there's a few ways they can do it. Number one, they expose things, kind of like what I'm doing. And I mean, I'm way behind the bus. I'm like 3 buses back, because I mean, there's a lot better people out there, exposing this stuff than I am. And I mean, this has been done to death, but I figure it's something that it's good to kind of cover and just put, some extra dots in there. But there's the other people, the kind of get or done types. And these are the people that the Illuminati fear the most. Again, out of many comes one, where instead of for the greater good, it's basically out of the many comes one, the individual, the thing that the communists fear the most, the individual. That's why they like collective dumbed down society, not individuals, because individuals are scary. Because individuals actually come up with solutions, and usually the solutions are quite violent. Not that I'm advocating for that, but it's a recipe that gets played out in history several times. They're usually quite violent, and they're usually quite effective, because usually, again, think about it. You have 7-8 billion people on this planet, vs all the militaries in the world. I mean, wouldn't be enough to stop everybody on a revolt, number one, if they have the right leader. And if that right leader had the right weapon to get a message out, holy jeez, can you imagine that? It'd be something like, I don't know, like Facebook or Twitter, or maybe even YouTube. Holy crap, we got that. You see why they want to censor it? Again, it's a weapon. And the other thing is to take down 5,000-6,000 people that kind of run the world versus, and not all of them are bad, but most of them are not in the best interest of the people. But to take down all those people versus 8 billion, I'm putting my money on the I'm putting my money on the people that are not Illuminati, and stuff like that. But the stonemasons, Illuminati, skulls and bones, all the like again, look at John Lennon. He talked about it. Kennedy 1 week before his speech, 1 week before he died, was assassinated. He discussed the Illuminati, or secret organizations that were repugnant, and so they are out there. And to me, they're just evil people trying to control the world. But I don't think they're going to be very successful at it because, it's just they can't stand a revolt. Problem is that unlike in other times in history, the revolts will not be as easy to contain because the people that are in the know. I mean, we're talking like Navy SEALs, them type of guys. These guys that have connections that they can fly around the world and take out people, and you would never know. Kind of like what they've been doing to the bankers, knocking them off in broad daylight type of thing. Again, that goes up they're going up the ladder. You start at the top and you work your way down, right? So, but anyway, I'm not making any threats. I'm just saying, I can see it coming. But maybe if some of these cards, keep playing out the way they do, then you never know. Maybe this was kind of that. They're too dumb to pick up on it anyway. Who knows? But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. There's about another 2 minutes or so of cards. If you want to, take your time, go through them. if you want to see the cards, you can just search Illuminati Card Game or New World Order Card Game, and you'll find quite a bit. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's just my take on it. Where it goes from here, well, we'll see where I know Obama, from the making of this video a couple of days ago, started announcing how he's going to tackle climate change. So is he pandering to his base, or is he getting ready to unveil huge carbon taxes, which will make people even more poor? Because Obamacare didn't work, it didn't get the revenue it was supposed to. The young people aren't signing up to it. It's not really helping the people that they say it's helping the odd person, but it's completely unaffordable. It was supposed to be a big tax that was supposed to boost the economy. It didn't work, which would have helped them out on their agendas. Now, carbon tax, well, you put a tax on consumption of everything. Everybody becomes so poor that you get mass poverty, and then you get a major revolt. And then from that revolt, who knows? Out of the many comes one, but what might rise out of the ashes? Who knows? All right, so rate, subscribe, share, comment, and like.